For centuries, poets have used words as weapons. I mean, think about Pablo Neruda. His poems were like these sharp spears aimed right at a dictator's heart. Or Shelley, whose writing was basically the spark that lit revolutions. Back then, in the age of print and town squares, their words really did change the world. But what happens when that battlefield shifts from a piece of paper to the palm of your hand? Right. What happens when the public square is your digital feed? You know, when everything's just a fleeting image you scroll past in a second. Does poetry still have that same kind of dangerous power? Can a poem, squeezed between a vacation photo and a news alert, still hit you like a bullet? And that brings us to the new battlefield. Because today, the platform itself, where a poem shows up, actually starts to dictate what the poem looks like and what it can do. And right now, the biggest platform for this new kind of poetic warfare is, you guessed it, Instagram. The whole game has changed. On a battlefield where you're just endlessly scrolling, poetry has to adapt or it'll just die. It's got to be short, it's got to be visually powerful, and it has to be direct enough to make you stop that thumb mid-scroll. So the goal isn't really deep, complex metaphors anymore. It's about landing an immediate emotional punch. And if you want to talk about this new movement, you have to talk about one poet who basically wrote the playbook, Rupi Kaur. Seriously, to get what Insta poetry is, you really have to understand her impact. By 2024, she had over 5 million followers. Now just think about that for a second. That is a direct line to an audience that poets from the past could only dream of. The scale of that influence is something we've never seen before in history. And this line, it's a perfect example of her style. It's so direct, it's emotionally raw, and it's incredibly easy to share. There are no complicated poetic tricks, but in just one sentence, it creates this powerful feeling of solidarity for millions of women. Now, of course, there's been pushback. A lot of people ask, is this even poetry? You know, it doesn't have the layers or the ambiguity we expect from the classics. But honestly, this debate isn't new. When Emily Dickinson first started breaking all the rules of grammar, critics said her work was strange and sloppy. Today, she's seen as one of the greatest poets ever. So this brings us to a really fundamental shift. The real power here isn't just in the poem itself. It's in how we, the audience, interact with it. The reader isn't just a passive observer anymore. They're an active participant. And their weapon is that little like button. See, a like isn't just a tap on a screen anymore. It's like a silent shout of agreement. It's you saying, I feel this too. And a share? Well, a share takes that private moment of reading and turns it into a public statement, making a single voice into a massive chorus. Reading becomes a form of participation. These digital communities had become what some are calling a modern memories public square. It's this space where our collective feelings, our trauma, our anger, our hope, get recorded and validated. In the past, people would gather in a real square to chant slogans. Now they gather under a hashtag to share a poem. But does all this digital energy just stay online? I mean, can a shared poem actually get people to move from their screens out onto the streets? Well, the evidence seems to say absolutely, it can. Take the poet Clint Smith, for example. While phone cameras were busy recording the physical violence of racial injustice, his poetry was doing something else. It was documenting the internal landscape, the wounds you can't see, the constant anxiety of being Black in America. He was giving language to the pain. Wow. I mean, a line like that just cuts through all the empty reassurances that things will get better. It honors the voices of the people who were lost and forces you to face a really uncomfortable truth. And when Smith performs this, not just as text but in videos online, his voice and his breath create this incredible emotional impact that millions of people then share. And then there was the moment this whole thing hit its absolute peak. Amanda Gorman at the U.S. presidential inauguration. On one of the biggest stages in the world, her poem was broadcast to hundreds of millions of people, pretty much in real time. At a time when the country felt so divided, these words became this kind of spell for unity and hope. A young, Black, female poet's voice, amplified by social media, became maybe the most powerful message on the planet that day. It was this massive, shared experience of healing, and it was delivered through a poem. But the power of poetry in this digital age isn't always about what's being said. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is about what isn't said. And the story of the Mexican poet Javier Cecilia is a truly shocking and powerful example of this. After his son was tragically murdered in Mexico's drug war, Cecilia,
who was a really celebrated poet, made a declaration. He announced what his final and most powerful poem would be.
Silence. He declared he would never write another poem. For a poet, to stop writing it's like erasing your own existence. It was this act of just profound pain and protest. But here's the incredible part. That act of silence became the loudest poem of all. It was like a deafening scream against the violence. And his silence became a rallying cry, sparking this massive peace movement that brought thousands of people into the streets. The absence of words became the most powerful weapon. So, what does this all mean? It's pretty clear that poetry hasn't gotten weaker in our noisy digital world. It's just evolved. It's become faster, more direct, and way, way more collective. The power has totally shifted. It doesn't come from a single heroic writer like Neruda or Shelley anymore. Now, it comes from the network itself, from millions of likes and shares that validate a feeling and amplify a message. In a strange way, the network itself has become the great poet of our time. For generations, we've always asked this question, right? We've been looking for that one single voice, that one great piece of work that would define our era. But maybe that's just not the right question anymore. The new question is really for you. In this giant network where a single share can spark a movement, what role are you going to play? That small act of scrolling and tapping right there at your fingertips, it might just be giving birth to the next beautiful or maybe even terrifying new thing. All the ideas we've been exploring today come from the book, Why is Poetry Dangerous? If you want to go even deeper on this, it's a fascinating read, and you can find it for sale on Amazon.